Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. Central European Time. We're here in Lund. My name is Johan Gunnarsson. I work at the Division of External Relations at Lund University, and we're hosting this session here today with our current students in the field of science. We have a couple of, or quite a few master's students, and we also have a bachelor's student who are taking science degrees here at Lund University. And we hope that our participants, attendees here today, that you would have some interesting and relevant questions to ask of our current degree students, international degree students, I might add, about their programs, about life in Lund, life in Sweden, what's it like to be an international student in Sweden, in Lund, about the application process, perhaps. How do you prepare your application? What type of material? You know, any type of question that would be relevant for our current students to provide some information about. But before we continue with your questions, and please, attendees and audience members, if you have a question, please use the Q&A to pose your question. Zoom Q&A, you can write your question at any time. You can start now if you want to, but I would like to invite our panelists, current students who learned in the field of science, to introduce themselves, starting with Bradley.
Hey, so yeah, my name is Bradley. I'm from England, and I'm currently in the second year of my master's in physical geography and ecosystem science. And right now I'm doing an internship within my department, actually, under one of the lecturers here. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Bradley. That's interesting. We're going to return to that subject as well, about internships. Jonah, welcome.
Hi, I'm Jana. I'm from Germany, and I study the second year of my master in aquatic ecology, which is a mixture between marine biology and limnology, if you're into it. And I'm doing statistics right now, so more math and less water. But I'm going to start my master thesis soon. And yeah.
All right, thank you, Jana. Second year student as well. And then we have Aziz studying chemistry.
Hey to all prospective students and you, Johan. I'm actually a full master student, and right now I'm actually in the first semester, so I'm a little bit new, but I'm actually very happy to, if I could help with the questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Aziz. We have Nikki Nash.
Hello everyone, I'm Nikki Nash. I'm doing my first year of master's in bioinformatics. I have my background in biotechnology, so if you have any questions about the programming aspect, if you don't have a programming base, you can ask those questions to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki Nash. We have Marie.
Hello, welcome. My name is Marie. I am from Costa Rica, and I'm in the third semester of the Mathematics Bachelor program.
Thank you, Marie. And finally, we have Melina.
Hi, everyone. So I am Melina. I am from Greece, and here in Lund, I am studying the master's in molecular biology. I am now in the second year of my studies, and I am currently doing my master's thesis in the lab of epigenetics and chromatin dynamics at the Biomedical Center.
All right, thank you, Melina. So it's quite a, I mean, here in Lund, we have science programs. Our program portfolio is very broad, isn't it? And also quite deep, because many of our programs have several specializations. For example, biology, molecular biology, physics, etc., and chemistry as well. There are many specializations. So perhaps our audience members would have questions about that. But we do have one question that came in almost immediately when we opened. Claire is asking you guys, the panelists, did you apply to other schools as well, or just Lund? And how and why did you decide to take the offer from Lund eventually? And I do believe that many international students in particular do apply to many different schools often, but why did you take the offer from Lund? Melina, you're nodding. Did you apply to many different schools, or maybe both in Sweden and outside of Sweden? Please share your experience.
Yeah, so I applied in Lund and Uppsala in Sweden, and I also applied to Copenhagen. So everything is really close. I ended up choosing Lund because for me, the master's program in Lund seemed to be the most flexible one, and I can guarantee now that it is way more flexible than other programs that I have seen. And it gives you freedom to choose a lot of courses, and I really like that because I really like to have some flexibility and decide and kind of shape my program how I want, in the way that I want it to be. And also, I don't think I could go towards more towards the north because it's pretty cold here in Sweden. So that was also a factor.
Yeah, and an important one, in my opinion. Any other perspectives here? Marie, you were nodding vigorously when
Yes,
when you read the question.
It's because I have a different story. I only applied to Lund.
Oh, I see.
Yes, I fell in love with everything that the university represents. And for the bachelor programs, I was very lucky because when you're trying to find bachelors, it's not as easy to find one in English. And Lund University offers 9 bachelors in English, which was an amazing advantage for me. So that's why I chose Lund. Yeah. And only Lund.
But then you had decided on Sweden somehow, and then you found the bachelor's programs taught in English.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Aziz, you raised your hand.
Yes, I want to actually say my experience has actually, I'm from Afghanistan, and it's a little bit difficult to, there are some difficulty to get the visa. So I applied actually to some different, universities, and fortunately I got, admitted to many of them actually. Like in Norway, I also applied in Norway. But I also got a scholarship from Lund University. But the main reason actually I chose Lund just because of the specialization. I'm studying in chemistry, and the field that I am going to continue my study is analytical chemistry. So I found Lund University, actually there is a research group that was specific in this field. So, and I searched about the equipments, I searched about the professors, I searched about lots of things. So that is the main reason that I chose Lund University to continue my master.
So you did your homework. I mean, you really checked all the information, the department, what type of research is being conducted, what type of equipment do we have, etc., before you made your choice. And I think that's a general recommendation to all prospective students, is to really do your homework and find out as much information as possible before you make an application, so you know what you can expect to receive when you come here or experience. Bradley, what about you?
Yes.
You're from the UK, you told us.
Yep.
So did you study in the UK for your bachelor's, and then?
Yeah, I did my bachelor's in the UK, and I did a year abroad, and for one semester I studied at Uppsala. So I already kind of had Sweden on my mind, and then when I came to applying for here, I was kind of looking through the best unis, and I saw Lund, and I thought, I like Sweden. I can go to Sweden again. So I ended up just applying. I applied for different programs within Lund, which were all geography related. But this was my first choice because I did my bachelor's in physical geography, so it kind of made sense to continue down the physical geography route.
Sure. Okay. Can we hear from Nikki Nash?
Yes. I applied to many universities, mainly in Germany, Ireland, Denmark, and Sweden. So what led me to fix on Sweden was the fact that Lund was near the Copenhagen area. So even though if you like study in Denmark, it is not really Denmark is a bit expensive than Sweden. So I thought since Lund is closer here, why not study here?
Right. Yeah, and also I think we could say in terms of like industry, if we look at say pharmaceutical industry or many other industries, they are kind of on both sides of the Öresund Strait. So both the Copenhagen side and the Swedish side, we have lots of industries related to this. So lots of graduates from Lund work in Denmark after they finish their studies here. Jonah, you're from Germany, and I know for a fact that we have a lot of German students in Lund, don't we? Do you think Lund is particularly attractive for German students? And if so, why?
I think Sweden is particularly attractive to German students. Because a bit similar, like Bradley, I went on an exchange, not to Uppsala, but Umeå in the north of Sweden during my bachelor studies. And I also really liked Sweden, and Lund just had the best program, but I also applied to Gothenburg and Stockholm and Umeå again. But Lund was my first choice because the program fits the best. But I think it's really nice because for all the German students that come here, probably it's also related to maybe some childhood memories, because a lot of Germans come here for vacation, and it's also easy with the language because everything is in English, and Swedish is actually quite similar to German. So it's also quite easy to get around in everyday life, which is also easy if you only know English and no Swedish or German, but it's quite similar. And then it's still far from home, but not very far from home. So you can easily go home for the holidays, but you're also abroad, and that's kind of cool. So I think that's one of the reasons there are so many Germans here.
Yeah, you mentioned language, and that is something that a lot of people want to know about, because obviously the education we provide, our international programs are taught completely in English. But outside of class, outside of school, do you ever find that, oh, I wish I understood Swedish or could communicate in Swedish, if presuming that you don't speak any Swedish? What do you think, Melina? Have you ever been or encountered a situation where you felt it's difficult to just communicate in English?
Yeah, so here in Sweden, I think most of the people do speak English, and quite good actually. So for me, I think there had only been 1 or 2 instances that I have met someone that I could not communicate with in English. However, I would still recommend people to at least learn some basic Swedish, because we are in Sweden. So at some point you might need them. And especially for me, I need them when I do grocery shopping, because the labels are usually in Swedish or other Scandinavian languages, but no English. So I have to use translate all the time. In order to find out what exactly I'm buying.
Okay. Anyone else? Bradley, as a native English speaker, do you find it easy to live in a place like Sweden, or the Nordic region in general, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think very, very occasionally do you end up in a situation where somebody only speaks Swedish, and even then, usually someone else nearby speaks English. So, but yeah, like Melina said, I think it's still a good idea to try and learn it. As I don't know, I've had someone come up to me once, start speaking Swedish, and at least I know how to say, like, sorry, can you speak English? Because so I think it's definitely a good idea to try and learn.
Is anyone here learning Swedish now? Jana, Nikki Nash, Marie? Okay, so can you tell us about that? Because we can tell people that if you get a Swedish personal number, if you're staying for more than a year, then you're eligible to study Swedish free of charge. But of course, you need to have time. Learning a foreign language as an adult is not, for some at least, so easy. Do you have time for it, Nicholas? What's your experience?
Basically, we can arrange our classes according to our needs. So if we have classes from on Monday to Thursday, for instance, you can set up a Swedish class on Friday and another day. Basically, also you have the facility to have the classes online. By the way, this is for the Swedish for Immigrants course, conducted by the government. Also, you can do a Duolingo courses if you want. So that's a start. If you if you want some knowledge before coming to Sweden, you can do a basic Duolingo courses for a few days.
Is that free of charge?
Yeah, Duolingo is free of charge.
Okay, so that's a good tip. Download Duolingo or use Duolingo to learn some basic Swedish. Marie, you've been here. You're in your third year. Did you say you were in the third year?
I'm in the third semester.
Third semester. Okay,
Yeah.
so have you studied Swedish at all? And do you find it necessary to know Swedish to live here?
I wouldn't say it's essential to survive here, but as part of the cultural experience and the cultural appreciation, I am definitely learning Swedish because of that. I am able to communicate in English with everyone everywhere, which I'm very thankful for, because Swedish is quite difficult for me as a Spanish speaker. But I had the Swedish for Immigrants classes, and the professors there are amazing. I have a really hard time with the vowels in Swedish, the changes and all of this. So I think the pronunciation is one of the hardest parts for me, but taking those lessons helped me understand the different sounds that sometimes I don't even hear. But for sure, trying to speak a little bit each time, saying like, hey, to the bus driver, or tag, or ursäkta, or something, you start feeling like you're understanding more around. And also paying attention about simple question. Maybe the cashier at the supermarket is asking you if you want a bag, so you can learn these very common phrases, and you feel very, very proud of yourself when you actually understand it the next time.
Okay, yeah, I agree. But do you ever find, Jonah, that if you try to speak like Swedish to someone, they would answer you in English?
It depends. At the supermarket, this happens quite a lot. Not so much anymore, but sometimes I wish they would switch to English, and they don't. And then I'm struggling along. But I've been learning for quite a while, so it's getting better and better. But for example, I'm doing a bit of a, maybe not so mainstream hobby. I'm going horseback riding. So in the stables, there are a lot of people that only speak Swedish. So there, I just can't switch. I just have to keep going and ask 4 times when I don't understand. And at some point I do, but yeah. So sometimes it's, quite important.
Right. Yeah. I think when people ask me, I usually say, if you have a plan to stay in Sweden long term, like you have to, have a career, maybe settle down, start a family, etc., then it definitely makes sense to learn Swedish. But we have a question kind of related to that. Do you anticipate staying in Sweden after you graduate? And if so, why? I don't know. Bradley, what do you say? You have one more semester to finish your program, and then what kind of plans do you have?
Yeah, I'm looking into applying for a PhD position somewhere. I wanted to try and stay at Lund, but the professor I have, who's my advisor right now, he unfortunately didn't get any funding. So, but he's been helping me out, and I'm gonna have a meeting this week actually with somebody from Uppsala. But I know it's a long process, and it's very early days right now. So
Sure.
Yeah, preliminary plan is to try and get a PhD, or maybe lab technician job here would be great.
Can you introduce, if you know, I guess because applying for a PhD in different countries, it's a different kind of, the conditions are different basically. So what is it in Sweden if you intend to apply for a PhD position? What has to happen
I mean, I've had a bit of a look into it. I know usually I think each university has its own like application system, and you usually need like some references, and you need to use your cover letter, and it's quite good to maybe have some publications or at least some co-authorships, or if you can try and get your master's thesis published, I think that's a good thing to do. Yeah, I think it's not like they don't regularly post PhD adverts. It's just kind of you have to look around and hope something comes up that you're interested in, and then just try your best to apply for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we have funding for a PhD position, we will advertise it. But if we don't have funding right now, there is no open position for you to apply to. But then, like you can look at other Swedish universities that have the same subject, and they may have something. What about you guys, Melina? What is your plan when you finish your? I mean, science seems to be a lot of people who graduate from a science master's program. It seems to me that many of them are looking to perhaps do a PhD. Is that also the case for you, or do you want to maybe join a company or private sector?
Yeah, so it is true that most of the people that are graduating from molecular biology or biomedicine masters are actually pursuing a PhD afterwards. And I honestly don't know yet. I am still thinking about it. However, I am seriously thinking about it because Sweden has a great work-life balance for me. So I think that in general, the Swedish system values having a work-life balance. So we all know that doing a PhD is difficult, and it's 4 years that you have to be working hard. However, PhD students here are working their normal, maybe 9 to 5, or maybe, yeah, sometimes they might have to stay a bit longer and finish the project that they have to do. But at the same time, at some point they will go home, they will be able to relax, and then they will start again tomorrow. So this is something that I really like about Sweden, and that also applies to works in Sweden. I have seen that people value their breaks. They're taking their breaks, they're having lunch when it's time for lunch, and I really like that. So for that reason, I am seriously thinking about staying in Sweden.
Okay, thank you for that. Aziz, what about you? I mean, you're a pretty new student, so you still have time to consider different options, I suppose. But do you, in your future, see yourself applying for PhD positions or finding a job outside of academia?
Well, actually, as I told, I'm new here, but actually, I searched, positions for PhD in different countries. I'm searching right now also because getting a position in PhD is difficult. Mm-hmm. So the thing that I actually understood in Sweden, PhD is a position, is a job, like a job, and it's actually, gets paid. So you have salary when you are PhD students. I actually searched about the, also Canadian universities. I found that some students actually go to do their PhD without a salary, without getting paid. So I found Sweden PhD students have a job when doing their PhD. So it's very interesting. They can focus their studies, their researches more and more. So also it's difficult actually. But I have not decided right now. I'm actually considering the all options I will have in the future. I'm searching right now also. But the thing that I love Lund City and Lund University, and also the professors and also the supervisors, actually I found they're very good. But it depends on the positions. It depends on the positions when I actually will be graduated. So it depends on the options and positions, but actually I like to stay and do my PhD in Sweden. Yeah.
Thank you, Aziz. Nikki Nash, do you have any plans to stay on in Sweden or as a research or PhD student, or would you like to find a job outside of academia after you finish?
I am doing my first semester, so I have
okay.
not really decided on it,
Mhm.
but I am leaning towards an industrial job. So because the bioinformatics field is really flexible. So even if you don't have a PhD, you can work your way up the ladder. So have to think about it still.
Right. Thank you. And Jana, finally, what are your plans after you finish your degree, your master's degree?
I'm also considering doing a PhD, but I don't think I'll do it right after my master's because I think I need a break.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I will stay in Sweden. As the other said, the conditions to do a PhD here are really good. But I'm also considering that in Lund is a student city, and as a PhD, it's probably also very different to be here, especially when the master's is over and everybody I know is kind of leaving and going other directions. So yeah, I'm keeping all my options open.
Okay, yeah. I told you guys we had program representatives in previous sessions, previous webinars today, and many of them said that around 50% of their graduates go on to PhD level education. But it doesn't have to be in Lund, of course. It could be to some other university in Sweden or in some other country. So we have a question here from Jakub, and he is wondering, and this is, some of you may have started preparing your thesis, master's thesis work. So this person is wondering if it's possible to propose your own project for the master's thesis that corresponds to the course's scope, or does it have to be selected from a predetermined list of projects? Jana, you're shaking your head. What's your take on this when you're preparing your degree project?
So unlike many other countries, I don't think Sweden has a lot of these lists where they write out projects. If I'm wrong, and it's different for you other guys, please correct me. But here you actually have to look into the research groups and find something that you're interested in. So, for example, I approached a research group and said, "Hey, I like your work. Is there something that I could do?" And if you have your own imagination, if what you want to do, you can always approach a professor that is maybe working in that field and ask if that's at all possible. And I guess as a student, it's sometimes hard to know what kind of volume one project can have to be a master's thesis, but usually you can get help to get it adjusted. And you just need to find somebody that's kind of a bit into the field and can help you along, because if you don't have a good supervisor for it, it might be a struggle. But yeah, usually it's very good when you can bring in your own ideas, and if it's not possible, you have to be open for other things, but it's absolutely possible, I think.
But how do you approach them? I mean, did you just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'm Jana in the Masters in Aquatic Ecology. Can I do a..."
Probably could. I just emailed, and usually you have a lot of professors that are different in each course, and then they usually also present their field. So, for example, I had this one professor in one guest lecture, and then I just emailed her. Probably you can also just walk by the offices if they're there. It's very easy to get in touch.
And they could say either yes or no. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they usually say, come by for a chat and we can discuss a bit, and yeah.
Okay. Bradley, what about you? Are you also preparing or have prepared your...
Yeah, but I was going to say, actually, the physical geography department has a webpage where they post thesis suggestions. So yeah, there's, especially when it a few weeks ago, when it's kind of around the time people need to start thinking about the topic, this webpage suddenly gets like a whole bunch of lecturers posting all of their suggestions and ideas. So, but I think it's still completely possible to think about your own project and then look whether, like, as long as it aligns with, as long as there's a lecturer who's somewhat similar with that topic, I don't think it'll be a problem at all to approach them and talk it through. as long as it is possible. That makes sense.
Yeah. Aziz, you raised your hand.
Yes, I'm going to say about the project. Actually, as I told you before, I plan to which group research I actually want to join and do my thesis. But the thing that I actually found here, there is a course. It's not a course. Actually, it's a kind of small project. It's not a whole project, and you can choose it after talking and consulting with your supervisor and professor. So in this small project, you can choose the topic you want to study, and you want to actually gain knowledge and do your research and do your. It's a kind of a small project, not the whole thesis. So it's a good preparation to gain the knowledge related to your thesis. So I wanted to mention these kind of small projects. It's a good opportunity to take these small projects. Yeah.
Thank you, Aziz. Melina, you raised your hand.
Yes, so I'm actually doing my master's thesis now. So I have been through the whole process of looking for the thesis. And as far as I know, the biology department, there is this blog where they upload some project proposals. And I think it's for the molecular biology and bioinformatics projects. However, we're not restricted to that. This is just a blog that we can find some projects, and then it's a good start because then we can see what is going on in the research that is happening in different labs. But apart from that, we can search for a thesis on our own. We can look into different lab groups and see what they're doing, see if their research interest fits ours. And then even if we do have a specific project on our mind, I guess I haven't heard of anyone doing it, but at the same time, if it fits the research interest of a specific group, then I guess a student can always approach the PI of the group and tell them about what they have in mind. However, it has to be relevant. They cannot, someone that wants to study, I don't know, plant molecular biology cannot go to someone that is working with neurobiology, for example. But yeah, it's quite flexible, I would say.
And have you, in your kind of encounters with our academic staff, has it been easy to contact people? Have they been friendly, or have they helped you, generally speaking? Is it easy to speak with our teachers? Nikki Nash, even if you're a new student, you have some kind of feeling for how it is to interact with our academic staff. Are they approachable, in your opinion?
The staff in Sweden, or specifically Lund, are really different from where I studied, right? So you can't really question the answers given by the professor in India. You have to go by what they say. And you have to call them, sir. You have to knock on their door. You have to set up appointments. All this stuff is not totally not present in Sweden. If you see a professor that you need to talk, you can just ask him if he has a time for your question. He will try to solve your questions. And you can usually address professors with their first name. They are incredibly friendly. They don't hold grudges against you for interrupting the class or something. So it's a nice experience.
All right. Anyone else want to weigh in? Do you find that it's easy to approach staff members and get help when and if you need it? Jonah, is that something you have experienced?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In Germany, you always have to use all the titles, and you never call anybody by their first name. That's very rude. So here it first took a bit of adjustment. You just say the first name, and it's very easy. And I've realized that the staff, everybody from professor to study advisor, everybody is very understanding. So also if you're struggling with something, they're not going to make fun of you or tell you, oh, but you should have been understanding this 2 weeks ago. They will tell you again and will try to help you as good as they can. And yeah, I don't feel stupid asking questions, which is something I'm very happy about.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, all. And now we have a question here that is directed to you, Jana, for biology, but I think it's a question that is actually broader, because it's about when you make your application to some programs, you have to submit your academic merits, of course, your background, academic background, but you may also need to provide some kind of more personal information. And we sometimes have something called a summary sheet that students have to fill out with, could be personal details, like their motivation for wanting to join us here. I know biology, you have that, molecular biology, you probably also have that, if I'm not mistaken, the summary sheet. Physical geography, you also have it, if I'm not mistaken. Chemistry, you just have your academic merits, I believe, when you apply. But who would like to say a few words on how to approach or how to prepare those special documents that are just for the program that you're applying to? Jana, maybe you want to say something about that, as the question was actually directed to you. How did you fill out the summary sheet for your program?
So in the summary sheet, I had to write my motivation, why I wanted to be in this program. And I wrote this quite personal, like why I wanted to study this program specifically, but also why I wanted to study this in Lund. So I stated some more motivations there. And then you have to also submit, I guess it's still so, but if I'm wrong, check again, please. Don't want to say anything wrong here, but I also had to submit some of my previous works, which can be a bit tricky because I didn't really know what the university is expected there, since all the lab reports that I had from my bachelor were mostly in German. I thought, okay, can't really submit this or 45 pages of lab reports. Nobody wants to read that. So yeah, I went quite, yeah, it was a bit personal, but also a bit, yeah, it was a bit weird what I submitted. So I, for example, also submitted lab reports where I had drawings of cells from botany or zoology. I also submitted a recommendation from my work, which had to do with marine biology, and a lab report that was actually in English, and that seemed to work. At least it worked for me. I don't know if it works for somebody else, but take what you have, I guess, and make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else remember making their application? And how did you prepare? I mean, it's one thing to have your academic documents. I mean, those are what they are. You can't really do, your GPA is your GPA, right? I mean, you can't change that after you have finished your bachelor's, but there may still be in some programs an opportunity for students to try to motivate why they are wanting to join a certain program at Lund University. Melina, I think molecular biology, correct me if I'm wrong, they also want you to submit a summary sheet where you have to describe why you want to take the program, right?
I honestly do not remember because it has been 2 years now.
Okay, all right.
However, I would say that if there is a summary sheet that students have to submit, then I would say just be honest. Write the actual motivation, like why you want to come to Sweden and Lund specifically. Do not just copy and paste the same thing that you might use for other universities as well, because that is super general. And sometimes people can tell if it's something that is just a copy and paste. Just do a bit of research. See why you specifically want to study this program in Lund University, and just be honest. I don't think it has to be something super fancy or that students have to use extremely fancy English and so that they can impress the people that are reading their summaries. It's just be honest and motivate your reasons for wanting to come to Lund.
Thank you, Melina. I think Aziz provided some good advice in the beginning of the session where he said that do your homework, look at the department pages, web pages to see what kind of research projects they're involved in and what kind of professors or researchers, what are they doing, who are they, and try to perhaps express in your personal letter that you would like to join this environment because you would benefit from it. But more a general question, I would ask Marie, how easy is it to adapt to Lund University as an international student, and how do you find the balance between academic expectations and the time you have? So I guess, again, probably some kind of work-life balance situation, the time you spend studying and the time you have more like free for social activities, I suppose.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I realized when I came here is that I come from a very competitive academic culture, and that is non-existent here in Sweden. So that changed my mindset about how to approach my academic path. It's also about enjoying the process. It's also about growing as a human being, not only as a student. So I believe Sweden gives you the opportunity to see what we were mentioning, the work-life balance, that is very interesting because I remember studying in one of the study centers, and you see that most people start leaving at 4:30 or 5. That's something that I wouldn't see back home. And that made me realize, like, oh, the day is done. So people can take time to go for fika or go and make dinner or just relax after that time. So by seeing these cultural differences when it comes to academics, I started learning and adapting to it as well. And it's been such a healthy detox process for me personally, because I've always felt a lot of pressure when it comes to academics. And this is something that is really not present in Swedish education. You can be yourself. Your grades are important, but they're not the main objective of your life. It's more about what you learn, but also what you can give. And I think that makes you understand what life is about here.
Thank you, Marie. Very insightful. What do you say, Nikki Nash? Coming from a completely different country and culture, was it easy or difficult to adjust? Have you adjusted yet completely to the way things are done here at Lund University and in Sweden, or do you find it difficult still to kind of?
I would say that I am starting to better adjust to the Swedish education system. When I came here, the first course that I did, I was surprised to know that you can study at your leisure, you can attend the lectures, you can do the lab during the lectures and ask them questions, but it just depends on you. At the end of the day, you need to study what you need to study for the course. So, and marks don't really matter here, but you need to understand what the core concepts that are being taught so that you can use them in the future.
Thank you. I was kind of interesting also in how you are examined. I mean, how are exams done here? Is it sit down, written exam? Is it oral exam? Is it group work? Is it reports? What do you have any examples here that you can give on how exams are being conducted? Bradley, is it similar to what you had in during your bachelor's level studies, or is it slightly different, or is it? Can you give some examples, please?
In terms of exams, I think in Sweden it's much more kind of relaxed, like not stressful. Like when like the environment of an exam room, it's you can bring in like lunch and food, and and everyone's kind of usually talking before the exam begins, whereas in England it's like you know, if you breathe when you're in the lecture room, you're going to get thrown out. And if they hear any sign of a phone, you're probably going to be like disqualified from the exam. So I definitely prefer the exams here. And at least in my modules, it's usually exam is probably worth the most, and then maybe the big project, which is the second most important thing, and then there's a bunch of smaller exercises. But yeah, it's definitely healthier for your mindset here compared to England, I think.
Okay. Anyone else? Aziz, what do you think? Have you had many exams yet?
Well, actually, I passed just one course, and it was 15 credits, and actually it was very, very different from my actually bachelor. I mean, the exam related to my bachelor. You know, it was an actually open book exam, and you could bring your laptop, you could bring your you know, books. It seems actually simple, but you know, it's very conceptual, so it might be a little bit difficult. But anyway, it's very good. You know, you can review the thing that you studied before the exam, so you are so relaxed, I think, if you studied before the exam, and it's very good to use the notes, the books, and everything you will bring. But also it depends on the professor, and it depends on the lecture and the course. For example, we in the following exam that relate to this course I actually took, it's not open book, but the previous course was kind of open book exam. Yes.
Right. Melina, what is your experience?
Yeah, so what I would like to say, especially to the new students that might be stressed out if they are not passing the exam, for example, it is okay, because there is always, at least in the courses that I had so far, there was always a re-exam. And it's usually a few weeks after the actual exam. So you have a second chance. And then I think after that, there's also another re-exam at some point, maybe during summer. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, it's not the end of the world if you don't do well, because yeah, things might happen and maybe you won't do as well as you expected, but there's always another chance after a few weeks or maybe a month. And even on the next year, it's not like that you have to pass the exam, otherwise you're getting kicked out of the masters or something.
Jonah.
Yeah, exactly that. In Germany, you get kicked out of the whole master program, and then you cannot study it anymore at all anywhere in Germany. After when you have failed it 3 times the exam, and everybody was shocked when I told them that here, because what I've heard from here is that you can take an exam as often as you want, but you will at some point get it. And what I also thought was quite remarkable about exams here is that if you're sick, and nobody is going to force you to an exam when you're sick, and you don't have to force yourself. So here you don't even need to go to the doctor and get an excuse note. You just tell the examiner, hey, I can't come today, I will be in the retake, and they say, okay, get better, and see you next time. It's very informal, and that also takes a lot of stress away, because I've had the experience that when I'm sick, but I really need to do the exam, because then maybe the next chance is only in the next year. That's not the case here. So that's really, really nice.
Bradley?
I just remembered actually that in my course they at least always have a few days before the exam, they have like a Q&A thing, so you can ask the lecturers any questions that you might be struggling with, and they they'll usually help you out as much as they can. It's like they want you to succeed. They don't want to, they're not trying to test you. They want to help you as much as they can.
Wow, thank you for your input. We have a question here for Nikki Nash. Did you have to study before the beginning of your master in order to be ready to follow the course? I guess maybe this person is asking about how you prepared, or if you prepared in some way before you enrolled, such as maybe you picked up some programming skills, or I don't know.
Yeah, I had a basics of Python course in my bachelor's degree. That's the limit of my preparation. But I did do my bachelor's thesis on a bioinformatics topic. So that might have helped in my application. But I do recommend that you have some programming skills so that you don't feel that everything is new when you come here. But they will teach you from the beginning of each topic. So you don't have to worry, even if you don't have this prior skill.
Thank you. Yeah, some programming skills are always good to have. Python is used in many programs, I believe. There's a question here about accommodation. Now, I'm assuming we have a pretty diverse group here. Some of you may have accommodation provided by the university, some have maybe not. Can we have a few different perspectives here? Who has the university provided education in this group from LU Accommodation? Okay, Marie, you raised your hand first. How did you apply, and what type of accommodation do you have?
Yes, well, because I have housing guarantee, meaning that I get housing from the university because I'm not from the European Economic Area. Then I applied as soon as I got my admission. And with LU Accommodation, you get a list of preferences, and then you choose the rooms that you would like to be assigned to. It's sort of a lottery. You might not get your first choice, but you will definitely get a place with LU Accommodation if you have this housing guarantee. To me, it was an amazing experience. I live in the Eden housing area. I've been living here since I arrived, and what I can tell you about LU Accommodation is that they care very much about your living conditions. So if something is broken in your room or something happens, you can go into the full report, and just a couple of hours after, you'll get the caretaker here fixing it for you. They are constantly giving us updates on certain topics, and they have this program called the Corridor Contact, in which one of the tenants goes to meetings with LU Accommodation. So there's a closer line of communication, and I find that this is very helpful. I actually love LU Accommodation.
Accommodation use that offer from them?
Since I also am not from the EU economic zone, I did have a housing guarantee from Lund University, so I too stay in Eden. And there's like 10 different options for accommodation, and there are various prices, the number of students that can live there, family rooms. It's clearly mentioned on the website, and you can list them in whichever order you need. I think the applications opened on May 1st for me, and I got my fourth choice as Eden. So yeah.
Fourth?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. I think generally for the students who have a housing guarantee, the earlier you make your application, the more likely it is that you would get like your first or second choice for accommodation. But what about you other guys? You don't have LU accommodation. Aziz, you also have LU accommodation or not?
I don't have I don't have LU accommodation. I had a guarantee, housing guarantee, from LU Accommodation, but actually due to the late response from the migration agency in visa, I was obliged to cancel actually LU Accommodation, and that was very great because it was my second choice, and I got a good actually accommodation, but I was obliged to cancel, and just I think 1 week or 2 weeks before 1 week, say 1 week before coming, she was very, very helpful. And she actually helped me to find another accommodation. It's an accommodation that's case, my department, the name is KC, Chemicentrum, provided for me. It's very amazing. It's very good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Bradley, Melina, and Jonah, Melina and Jonah, you're from the European Union, so you don't have a housing guarantee. What does that mean? And Bradley, you are not anymore from the European Union. So what do you do when you need to look for housing in Lund as an EU or as an EU student if you don't have a housing guarantee? Do you have any tips? Jana? Sorry, please go ahead.
I did get a housing guarantee actually. I ended up in Spolletorp. I think it was my first choice, but I think the same story. I think I applied as quickly as I could.
Yes.
I'm very happy with what I got anyway.
Yeah. Spolletorp is great, centrally located. But Jana and Melina, you're EU students. You don't have a housing guarantee. Was it difficult to find housing? I hear sometimes that it's difficult.
Yeah, it was a bit of a struggle because you are on your own, and there are some sites where you can go. So I think a lot of students look on Facebook. There's a Facebook group for accommodation, but you have to be quite careful to not get scammed there. There are some rules that you can follow to be sort of safe, but it feels a bit sketchy, but a lot of students use it. Personally, I looked a lot on Bopulen, which is advertised on the Lund University website, and I also found my housing there. So now I live in a private apartment with 5 other students, and our landlady is Swedish. She's very nice, and it's cozy. But I think a lot of students that don't have a housing guarantee, they don't necessarily live in corridors, but often in shared flats with more or less roommates. And there's also Bostadsblocket. It's also a website where you can look and just write to a lot of people and be prepared to not get answers from 90%. And then when you get lucky, you should probably take the offer. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Would you like to say something, Melina?
So same as Jana, I actually found my accommodation through Bopulen. And yeah, it's a private apartment that I am basically sharing with the landlady. So yeah, since we do not have the housing guarantee, I personally started looking way earlier than May. I think I started looking during April for housing. So back then, since it was early, it was not that difficult for me to find housing because I knew that I had a lot of time, so I was not stressed. And I would recommend that students, if they know that they are going to go to Lund University, they can start looking a bit earlier. And then if they don't find something that they like, or if they want to wait for LU accommodation or the AF Bostader lottery, then they can also wait for that if they don't find something that fits them.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so if you don't have a housing guarantee, you're going to have to be prepared to do some hard work. Maybe it's going to take a little while to get an offer for housing, but eventually you will get an offer, but it's going to take a bit more work. So I just think finally, I would like to, because we've talked about education and stuff like that, we haven't spoken so much about social life. Now, Lund is, of course, a student town, and at least in Sweden, it's famous for its student life. What's it like to live? I mean, the city is rather small, of course, but the university is very big. So in our city, there are lots of people, university age people, you might say. So what does that mean? Is it possible to do a lot of interesting social activities, or what can you do in your free time, basically? Let's see, Jana, what can you do in your free time if you're, have different interests perhaps, or if you like partying, or if you like hiking, if you like if you play an instrument, what is it that you can do?
Well, I think there are lots of possibilities. Also, because you're not limited to just Lund, you can easily go to Malmö or Copenhagen, and it's usually a lot that you can do. Personally, I tried going to the nations. They have these sittings which are very famous, but they are not for me. I don't really enjoy them. And that's also nice. It's also fine. You don't have to love the nations. I
Maybe
enjoy
we should-
hiking much more.
Maybe we should just explain what the nations are, like student-run social clubs, basically. So I think we have, well, more than 10, at least, different nations,
13.
student clubs. 13, yes. Okay, the expert. Thank you, Marie. Yeah, so 13 nations, and you can, if you want to join a nation. But you said it wasn't really for you, Jana.
No, it's not really for me. I don't really like the partying part so much. I think some people really, really enjoy it, and that's great for them. I like other things. But
Okay.
I go outside a lot with my friends, and we go out for fika quite a lot, and we take games to the parks, or we take some trips during the weekends. So I'm never bored.
Well, that's good. Anyone else want to weigh in? What do you have? Bradley, do you enjoy the nations, or isn't it? I mean, some people think when you talk about nations, it's just partying, but that's not the complete picture, is it? Because they do have other activities as well.
Yeah, I'm also not really a big fan of the partying side, but I know as well. Yeah, they have the pub nights and where you can just like go and get some cheap food, which can be nice, and you can volunteer as well and get like food tickets where you get free food. But I know, yeah, some will probably have like music nights, or I can't remember which one, but I know some do like board game nights where so you can just go and socialize. It's not as intense as like a club night. So yeah, I think there's definitely a range of different activities that I think you can find something that you're interested in.
Thank you. Marie, you're raising your hand.
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, nations are not only about the partying. You get a lot of benefits when you join a nation, and all the nations will give you general benefits, but there are certain nations with different visions in maybe politics or environment or certain topics that go along with your personal perspective. So you can choose a place where you feel more at home, maybe. And one of the great things about nations is that once you join one, you get access to a lot of discounts. The most important one I consider is for the Skanetrafiken app, which is the public transportation services. So even if you don't like the partying or maybe the social activities, which I know that they're great and they have many different kinds, you should still join so you can get the benefits from them anyways.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. Anything else? If we look past the nations, what can you do? I personally, I like hiking. I like nature, so that's what I do in my free time. And I think nature is always close by, isn't it, in Sweden, because it's not so densely populated as many other countries. It's if you just want to walk, or hike on a hill or go to the forest, and you'll be alone for a couple of hours and just stroll around, or go to the beach for that matter. Do we have anyone else who is interested in such things, or maybe it's just me?
I think there are many options here to do many different types of sports. You can join clubs, or there are a lot of gyms that you can join classes. I personally enjoy swimming, but the open water here is quite cold right now. So I prefer going into indoor pools, and there are quite a few. Some gyms offer access to pools when you have their monthly subscription. So even when the weather is bad, you can always do physical activity here. And as you mentioned as well, just taking a stroll around the city, you will be able to find a lot of trails and forest areas. I have a lake 10 minutes away that I love to join, and I go feed the ducks. And it's also a very good way to disconnect from maybe a stressful day. And I feel Sweden always offers you the opportunity to relax outside. Just wear the right clothes when it's cold.
Yeah, good advice. Like a Gore-Tex jacket and all-weather boots. That's top advice in my book. Well, thank you all. We actually have, we were supposed to finish at 5. It's now 6 minutes past 5. So I would like to thank all of you, Marie, Jana, Aziz, Nikki Nash, Bradley, and Melina for joining us here today. And you shared a lot of interesting information about your programs and also social life here in Lund for prospective students. So thank you so much. And I want to wish you the best of luck with your continued studies here at Lund University and eventual graduation from Lund University. Yes, thank you also the attendees for joining us here and asking questions. I hope you found some of the information we provided useful and helpful for your application to Lund University. So yes, with that, I would like to say thank you and goodbye.